Hello and welcome. It's great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thanks so much for creating this space.
Yeah, and oh my gosh, it's April. It's hard to believe. Welcome everybody who's joining. We'd love to hear where you're joining us from. If you say hello in the chat, that would be awesome.
Southern Spain. Wonderful. Good evening.
Hello
Portland.
from Portland. Hi, Kate. And Southern Spain. I love that. Is it warm? I'm in New England where it's still chilly. Washington, always great to see our friends in Washington and Bothell, San Diego, Gilroy. Oh, St. Paul. I went to college in St. Paul. Tustin, Walla Walla, favorite spot. Denver, Canada, our neighbors in Canada. Hello. Hello from Michigan to Eve. Encinitas. Oh, we got a strong West Coast presence today. It's awesome.
Yeah. I know. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here.
We'll get started in just a minute. We want to say hi to everyone joining Milwaukee. Hi, Leanne. Anyone on spring break this week? It's a busy one. Um, let's see. We'll just while others are joining, Libby, where are you calling in from today?
Newport Beach, California, SoCal.
And I'm in Newport, Rhode Island. How funny is that? We've got both coasts and both Newports covered.
We got it. We got it all. We got it all.
All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get started because we have a big topic and a lot to cover. Let's start with introductions. I'll first introduce myself. My name is Monica Huntsberry. I'm a host and advisor for RevelEleven. I've been involved with this community for, gosh, I don't know, 7 or 8 years now and just love it. I am based on the East Coast now, and what I love doing is supporting women in all different facets of both their career and personal journeys. And in that process, I also do a lot of writing and writing workshops, and I happened to meet Libby in one hosted by Tara Moore, and we became fast friends and are always in conversation about life as mothers, as humans, as individuals who are inspired to make change happen. So, Libby, it's an honor to be here today with you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, Monica. And as you were saying that, I was reflecting. You were the person that said, "Have you ever thought about coaching?" It's funny that we find ourselves here today. And for the group, I am Libby Stockstill. I spent over 20 years practicing law, and much of that I spent leading and shaping iconic companies. And through that leadership journey and Monica's great suggestion, I found coaching for myself and then really became determined to bring that magic to my teams. And that became a calling that I couldn't ignore. And ultimately, I left my corporate role to find more alignment and to pursue some of my other big dreams outside of the corporate world, including focusing on this integrated life and leadership coaching work and this business some days that I had been building for a few years. And very often in that work, I'm supporting people navigating things that can feel too big or too hard or too scary at times. And that's something I've had to navigate on my journey too. And as I navigate the world today and find myself in my doom scroll or, just constantly experiencing things that don't feel in alignment with my values or my hope for the future. And then I'm also working with clients in this work. I started to see a lot of crossover and I've really been trying to do my part in this time by sharing and then also creating spaces where we can reflect and support one another and move towards taking action with intention. So it's just a real honor to be here and, not to jump to the punchline, but part of what gives me hope is, so many people have signed up to join us and being in a space like this today with you. So just really, really appreciate it.
Thank you, Libby. It's been beautiful to witness your journey and you left a big career to pursue your passion and be aligned with your values. And we'll maybe chat a little bit more about that as we go on today. But I think it would be helpful. I mean, hope is such a big word, and I know you have a definition for hope, which we're going to talk about and unpack. But I'm also curious, for those of you who are on today's call, if you can put in the chat when you think about hope, what comes up for you, whether it's a word, how you define it, what you're seeking when you're seeking hope, anything related to hope that maybe brought you here today. It would be great to hear from you what that's about. Oh, I love that comfort. Thank you. And Libby, what faith? Thank you. Peace, change. Yeah, peace again. I think for me, sometimes it's the future. Oh, I love that. And possibility. I think for me, sometimes I think in terms of, you know, what's the opposite, right? And for me, sometimes what the opposite of hope is angst or worry. And I really especially notice how I feel in my body, what energy I bring into a room when I'm holding fear, anxiety, angst, worry versus when I'm holding hope. And so I love this idea of really not just taking hope for granted, but focusing on it as a gravitational force.
Yeah.
And so I'd love if you want to maybe put in the chat your quote on hope. I think it would be great to start with just first of all unpacking how we think about hope.
Yeah. Can I read it and then I'll put it in the chat?
Yes, read it
Okay.
first. Read it
All right.
first.
I love this quote and I'll tell where I got it from. Hope is not naive optimism or wishful thinking. It's not passive waiting or blind faith. Hope asks something of us to show up, to stay, to keep building the world we want to see. It is the belief that our tomorrow can be shaped by what we do today.
Hmm.
And I am putting it in the chat. But fear for sure comes up for me, but like hopelessness and despair have been, you know, entering the chat a lot in my life in these times. And I know that's not where I have my most agency, but it's been a real challenge to keep finding the path out of it. And it was MLK weekend. I think it was actually Martin Luther King Day, where my colleague Yusuf Sakir shared a post talking about what he was witnessing a lot of people experiencing and sharing this quote, this definition. And it really like intuitively touched what I know I believe to be true. Um, and like instantly, I felt like I could connect to, yes, it's the active piece. It's not just something that I can go and find. It's actually a stance. It's a choice. It's the agency. And then again, this will be the theme where I have these, oh, wait, this is what I do. I can do this. I can do this. And it really changed my stance. And I've gone back to it many times since. With permission, I asked him. I'm like fanning. Just love it.
That's beautiful, and it is a wonderful quote, and I think I loved especially that line, "Hope asks something of us." Right? You're right that shift to action. It's not just this la 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 la, right?
Totally, totally. And I think we like, understandably, I think, but we live in times where sometimes like we can be, like we like to be the skeptic, right? And the hopeful person in the room. It's so easy to shut it down, like up to that la-di-da kind of a thing. Like, aren't you looking around? And it's like, no, we are intentionally choosing to come back to hope because that's the way forward. That's the way to the future that we want to see.
I mean, I just take that for a minute because I really like what you said. We intentionally choose to come back to it. And I think this is an important distinction and that we really want individuals here today or listening to this call to understand, which is that, Libby and I don't live in a hopeful state 24/7. We're not asking or prescribing anyone that you should, be in a hopeful state at all times. I think what we're asking ourselves and what we're sharing today is when we deviate from that hopeful state, which is normal, right? Which is part of life. When we're not there, how do we reorient? How do we find our way back? What are the tips for awareness? What are some of the resources, et cetera? Not to fast forward, but that is part of what we intend to cover with you today is not to how to be in a Pollyanna state, but how to create awareness when you're holding a place of hope versus anxiety versus angst versus despair, which, by the way, feel your feelings, right? All of it.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, even that is such an important part of this too, and making space to feel the feelings, which is
hmm
why I think virtual rooms like this are so important.
So, Libby, maybe first, if you can share with me, why do you think this topic is resonating with so many of your clients and so many of the people that you're in community with today? What is it that we're feeling in this moment that's causing us to seek out this topic of hope?
I mean, I mean, almost it's opposite, right? I mean, I feel like we're seeing so many things. We're bombarded with a news cycle. And that's if you're watching the news. I mean, pick up your phone, it's like Russian roulette of the doom scroll. Like what is going to pop up? Um, most of it is deeply troubling. And we are witnessing witnessing so much that I think that hurts us like deep at a soul level, at a human level. And that is layered into a time that is very divisive. So community is challenged, trust is challenged. We're doing a lot of this consumption on our own, or even if you're in the room with someone, you're all looking, we're not in community around it the way we might have been in the before, the pre-phone era. So I think all of those combined, and then we're trying to, you're navigating this while trying to kind of carry on as normal, in times that are not normal. um you know Many of my clients, myself, I've got a teenager, um being a leader, trying to run a business, trying to simply exist. The idea of going to the grocery store some days is kind of like, you're like, wait, what? Like, and the sun is just gonna rise in the morning and the birds are gonna sing. Like, this doesn't feel right. So I think many of us are sitting with this dissonance. Like, this doesn't feel like this aligns, but yet the cars are going by, and I guess I'm supposed to go to work now. And that just existing in that state, I think, is very alive for so many right now.
Right. Well, and I think there is a reality that when you're in the day to day, there's a reality that you face of sometimes showing up, and sometimes we're working for organizations even that might not align with our values, but we're working for them because we also have financial responsibilities to our lives or the lives of our families, right? And so there can be, as you said, dissonance in all different angles. Um, I'm curious with your, many years practicing law and during that practice, focusing on the values system, the difference between right and wrong, legal practice, etc. How has that maybe fine-tuned your vision of this moment and what you're working toward?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I think leadership in general, and I expand leadership, like everyone that showed up today is a leader. You know, we are leaders in so many capacities. And um, I try, it's easier for me to do things for other people than for myself. It's something that I'm still working on my own self-coaching around, why is that? But um, I think we have such an opportunity to embrace that leadership role. And to me, that is one of my core values is heart and soul led leadership, service, and impact. I used the creative combo term. So going to that core value for myself and trying to show up in that way and explore like what does that mean in this moment, but in any moment, but especially in this one, I think that recognizing that dissonance and that people are navigating a lot and making space and holding space for just the slowing down and the witnessing what we're experiencing, and you and I have talked about the very natural fight, flight, freeze, fawn that comes up when we are witnessing. I mean, we are witnessing um, unspeakable things very regularly, and that is our that is our human response when we feel unsafe or threatened. And it also can make it really hard then, particularly, for myself, feeling that freeze and then feeling frozen. And then that feeds the hopelessness because, well, now, I feel stuck. And so I think there is so much it feels so important to have these conversations and to really like normalize that this is a natural response and that also similar to any kind of coaching conversation when something feels so big and so challenging that there are things that we can do and that it doesn't have to be, I get stuck sometimes because I think I have to change everything in this lifetime. I think of all of the problems, and then my legal brain goes to all of the problems that could be the problems with the problems, and you need to have plan A, plan B, plan C. And it's like, oh, like, what are you going to do? Like, you can't possibly. And then that is my quickest path to complete shutdown. And then I actually had this experience in Women's History Month. Somebody sent me the um, the inspiration for the month, and I was reading through it, and I was like, "Wait a minute, you know." Every single person that has fought for the rights I now enjoy, like it's not perfect. We're a long way from where I want it to be, and we have been, my whole existence, but I would still want them to have fought. And maybe that's what I'm learning in this moment. It feels like the baton is here. And so what does that mean? And what is my unique light to shine? And that's where I start to find the hope again. Like we don't have to individually be able to fix it all. We won't fix it all in this lifetime, but we can move the needle forward, particularly when we come together and we all, commit to taking the baby step.
I really like that. And if I can maybe just pull some nuggets
Yeah.
of what you said out and reemphasize them, is that, it is a natural reaction and it's easy to feel stuck, to feel overwhelmed. We've also talked about, there are options to numb everywhere. And numbing is a natural reaction also to feeling overwhelmed or burned out or stressed. Maybe you come home from a long day of work and you're just Netflix binging or whatever it might be, phone scrolling, etc. Like again, the goal here is not to inflict more shame and blame on ourselves. It's to say, okay, some of these reactions are quite normal, especially in times where there is elevated stress, not just in the workforce, but in society, the divisiveness, the just the amount of news and activity coming our way that feels loud, right? And so during that moment, when you might feel stuck or frozen and might feel overwhelmed, like I can't do anything. I'm one person there. There is so much to fix. One of the topics we've talked about a lot on RevelEleven is climate. Like, how can one person possibly solve climate? Anything, right? Pick your poison, right? It's out there.
Yeah.
Um, but then what the Women's History Month, and I love that reflection, reminded you of is that just not that long ago, there were rights that we did not have, whether it was the right to vote, whether it was the right to carry a credit card, whether it was a right as a woman to have a mortgage in our name, right? All these rights just, probably for many of us in our mother's lifetime, right, have come to play to bear.
No. Business loan, 1988. Like that one, credit card, 1974.
Right. For
It
women, you're talking
for
about
women.
in terms
Yes,
of
yes,
when
yes.
these rights became available, right? But behind those changes were groups of individuals forming groups willing to advocate for what they felt was right, that they aligned with their values. And what it also indicates is that, always in society, we're stuck in systems. And it's the individuals fighting for change that orientate the systems into a different direction, open up new systems, whatever that might be. And so when we hear, well, that's the way the system works, or it's just the system, like, okay, and is there another way? Like the questions we ask, the curiosity, the ways we can show up, and we're going to lead into that in a few minutes. But just wanted to ground and make sure that people are following, and also jump in with questions and comments as we're talking, because we would love to take them as we take you through some of these next steps.
Yeah. Well, and while if people are dropping anything into the chat, I would just say too, like, and this is the dance, right? Like even hearing everything that you just said, I start to hear systems, and then you're like, oh my gosh, that feels big. That feels big. Ah. And I want to normalize that too, because, I imagine that many of the people on this call are, really busy. We as a society, like that is very normal. That is, I hear that a lot. People have a lot on their plates, balancing really full lives at a fast pace, want to do something, not sure what, maybe some of those external sort of conflicts, like wanting to do something, but can I? Is it going to put at risk things that are also really important to, my well-being, my family's well-being, all of those things. And that's part of why I really love going back to like the baby steps, like I feel like it's so important that they dance together because, I think sometimes we can get so overwhelmed by the enormity of what that would have to mean that it makes it very hard to move forward. So yeah.
I love that concept of baby steps. And you talk about, sometimes the dream being so big, it's a tidal wave, right? You want to expand on that and maybe also talk a little bit about the concept of halo.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, I mean, I think just sometimes, it's like it can be inspiring to think about the bigness, right? Because that's what we want. That's the dream. But then it's like, oh my goodness, that feels a million miles away. And for me, very much, and for a lot of the people that I work with, like particularly in these times, that feels very alive. It's like we are so far away from where we, would ideally be. But when you start taking baby steps, what you start to see is that one little shift actually gives you an entirely new perspective. And there's so much available. And also, it can create so much momentum. Um, I want to share quickly before there. So I've had so many so many experiences of synchronicity, and one of them was I was fortunate to hear Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor speak earlier this year, and it happened to fall in a very despair was threatening to fully encroach, and She just, I mean, she was amazing. And but she talked about we have this opportunity and a responsibility to show up and to try and to do our part in what the preamble to the Constitution in the US charges us with, which is to build a more perfect union. And again, sounds very big. That one, it's like, oh my gosh, how can I build a more perfect union? But then she said, there's so many problems, and that can seem overwhelming, but actually, like we can find something that speaks to us and just do that, somebody like something that could use our help, and just do that, start there. And it was an idea that I've circled myself to, of like, we all have a role to play, we all have a unique light to shine, and if we can find our light and shine it, then like that's the thing, that's what we do, and that's where we start, and we can trust that it will unfold, and we'll see the direction once we start walking towards it. And that to me feels, that's a way that I can get unstuck. Yeah. So she unstuck me, and I keep going back to it. It was really helpful.
No, that's a great example, and some individuals in the chat had wrote about action, and I do think action is a good um, antidote to despair. And I love the example of finding something where you either have a skill or you can shine your light. And we're going to talk about resources here shortly, but I'll just share a personal example, and then I would love if maybe you have one to share. So one of the things that I realized is that I kind of had this myth in my mind that in order for something I was doing to count, it needed to be hard, it needed to be challenging, I needed to have personal sacrifice, like whatever the old myths around what qualified as service or making a difference. And like you said, when I stopped and took an assessment of where I feel I'm able to bring my light, it is typically around joy. And we'll talk about joy in a minute as well. But I thought, okay, what are some of the things I love? And I had an Italian grandmother who shared with me the love of food and of feeding people and of showing love through food. And so what I found was a local food bank and cooking breakfast once a week, even though it's 6 a.m., which is a little early, but it's great because the days I cook breakfast are always the happiest days of the week because I'm starting my day in service. And I'm also starting to do it with something I love. And so I think, figuring out and unpacking what is something that you love, and there is need everywhere. You can find that skill set is going to be applicable. There are so many organizations in need, and leaning into that, that's one way to start to shine the light to make that ripple, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love that, reminds me of like the Venn diagram concept that I think about
Mhm.
sometimes, like joy and service. And you are like, joy and service. Awesome. Like what brings, doing those together. So not only are you engaged in service, but you're filling your joy cup. And like that I feel like creates a virtuous cycle of motivation too. So it can be so powerful to do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, and I'm happy to share. So another thing I think about is, the Venn diagram, like what are multiple things that I can achieve together, but also like what am I already doing or thinking about doing that I can build on, so that I think of a halo, like the light radiating farther. And I had the experience earlier this year, kind of seeing everything happening in the US, and communities rising up to support one another, and thinking, gosh, I wonder what's going on in my community. Oh my gosh, there's so much going on, and kind of starting to go in the, when am I going to do all the things that I want to do? And I realized I already had a meeting on calendar with the principal at the local public school and the community liaison. And I was like, I'm just going to see if I can carve some time out of the meeting that's already on calendar to talk about impacts in our community and how we might, better support them. And it's like, oh, I already have the meeting on the calendar. And that, I think too, to the myths and the um the idea that we're going to have to drop everything or that we've got to start a whole new thing, very often if we actually look at what we're doing, who we're supporting, what we had been thinking about doing anyway, there's a way to just pour more into it and have a greater impact.
I really like that example because, again, I imagine most, if not everyone on this call, has a very full schedule. And so, just instead of overwhelming of how am I going to create more time in this already overloaded calendar, where am I already investing my time, and how can I maybe step into more of a leadership role or activate my voice or use my agency for good to make sure that time I'm spending even creates more impact? There's a really great question in the chat about how you might also take a moment to self-reflect um, when you get into this can't or despair state. And is there a question that you ask yourself or something you do to orient out of that state into something of more hope? What are usually the signs for you?
Gosh, I mean, for me, like it's almost as if that rain cloud just blocks the sun. And so for me, it's very noticeable, and um, I feel it in my stomach, and I feel like almost my freeze mode, like I actually feel like affixed to whatever I'm sitting in from a deep, um, like an angsty feeling in my stomach. So for me, it's like it's very physical and it's very emotional. And whenever whenever I find myself in the place of like the spiral of like, oh no, oh no, oh no, I always say, what can I do about it? And sometimes that even starts with like, well, what can I do about it? In that but I think maybe over time I've worked to like I always come to like, well, what can I do? What can I do? Um, Maybe that's the like problem solving instinct, but if I just focus on like what's one small thing I could do actually right now, and it can be tiny, that just that shift towards finding something that I could do and that shift towards action and agency usually helps tremendously. And the other thing is like, what's the next right thing? Like I can say for sure, there have been times where it's like that next right thing is like, get out of bed, get up, brush my teeth. Okay, I did that. What's next, right? Like sometimes that is the thing that moves me forward. And then eventually it gets to the place where it's like, oh, I could do that. So I hope that was helpful. And Monica, do you have any that help you?
That's really helpful. A lot of times, well, I think like you, I can definitely feel it in my body. Um, and sometimes it's also it sets in like fatigue. Like I'm extremely exhausted because I've either been consuming too much or been up in the middle of the night thinking about something or whatever. And so for me, rest is a beautiful thing. And so whether it's finding a 15-minute power nap, sometimes even at 5 o'clock, right?
Yeah.
The power naps, or at least meditating, and we're going to talk a little bit about meditation and breath work and some of the tools later. Um, yin yoga at night, those kind of things are really good tools in my toolbox to help me get out of that anxiety I feel in the body because it's real. I think acknowledging that when the stuff is happening in your body, you can't just outthink it. You
Yeah.
have to work through it in your body. And then the other big thing for me is movement. I'm a daily walker mostly because I have dogs and they leave me no other choice, but I love to walk too. And I think movement, however you choose to do, even if it's in the chair, and we're again, I can't wait to get to the resources page because there's so many good ones. But I think getting that angst out of your body through movement, oh, speaking of dogs.
Yeah.
or whatever it might be, is really powerful and acknowledging, yeah, something is in my body here. And so how do I work through that? And then it's mine. Um,
Well, and that, thank you for that. And that made me think, like, also phoning a friend. I'm like, I've talked to you on many of those walks as we've been going through. Which makes me think like community too.
mhm.
You know, so many times in this time and others. Um, oh, I'm sorry.
There's good quotes
Maybe
out there. I know
yeah,
there's
there's quotes in
yes,
the
yes.
chat. I'm like, oh, there's all the things. But gathering, you know, being with others, um, and through some of those practices, can be really, really helpful too. And I just like as you were talking, I just kept thinking self-care, and I feel like self-care gets, you know, overused sometimes, but it really is so important to be making space to give yourself what you need, particularly in challenging times.
Yeah. So we have about 10 more minutes before we go into the meditation, and I want to make sure we get to the resources. But before that, let's just quickly talk about some of the myths. And I would love to hear from people who are present in the chat. What are some of the myths that you might have? I called out one earlier that, to make a difference or make an impact, it needs to be hard or there needs to be sacrifice. What's one for you, Libby?
Oh, I always think, you know, like, oh, well, then I would have to run for office. Or like, I don't know why. I think it's because like I don't plan to run for office, you know what I mean? And so it's like I think my inner critic gives me like, oh, well, you would have to do this and you're not planning on doing that. So it's like it's a shutdown.
Yeah, like it has to be really big. It has to be, you have to have a power position in order to
It
make
has
it.
to be, yeah, my whole life. It has to be my whole life. Yes.
Hmm. I also think one of the myths I get stuck in is it has to look a certain way. If it
Mhm.
doesn't look a certain way, it doesn't count. And so, earlier someone in the chat had mentioned possibility, that that's what hope looks like. And I think it is an important time for us to be open to possibility. And possibility means that, maybe not everything needs to be fixed in the way we'd like to see it fixed, but there's progress, there's movement, there's collaboration, there's, people building a bridge to cross over points of views and connection, right? All of those things make a difference. What else?
I'm alone with this.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And I think going to the like consuming this in isolation too can really compound that one.
Hmm.
Yeah.
What else? Anything else come up for anyone on myths or Libby for you?
Yeah, I have so many of the, you know, oh, you know, it's the it's like a myth combo. Like everybody else knows this. Like you know, everybody else has figured it out. You're the only like maybe a similar to the I'm alone with this. You know, I'm not doing enough. I don't know enough. I'm not informed enough. Um, insert any, you know, nasty inner critic in the civic arena. Um, you know, um, and the interesting thing I really that I am alone with this. I feel like even those feeling like you're alone with them, you know, like I'm the only one that doesn't know enough to do this. You know, and I think that then gets to this like the shame that can keep you stuck as well. It's a whole bag. It's
I
a-
agree. Or that it has to be all or nothing. You either, give up your whole life and time to stewardship, or you're sustainable 100% of the time, or you're not sustainable. It doesn't count like this all or nothing. Some really good comments. Thank you for people putting in the chat judgment. I love that, Francesca. And I love this so much, Dara. Not myth. It counts to share vegetables from your backyard garden. Yes, yes, yes. More of that, please. Just
yeah.
being neighborly, being generous, being loving. Myth, it won't make a difference. Thank you, Karen. I agree. Those are some really good myths. And so I think, again, we can all relate to these. We've probably all had these thoughts. I think part of what, Libby and I want you to be able to walk away with today is to know that you're not alone and also inspire you that, One thing, just one thing, right, can make a difference. What I want to do now, Libby, and go ahead and finish it if you have another thought you want to add. I want to start talking about some of our resources.
Yeah, absolutely. I just was going to say, one thing that I find very helpful when I'm in myth mode is to actually notice and like journal about when I can disprove that myth. So I'm alone with this. Noticing the times that you don't feel alone and like what were the circumstances, or it counts to share vegetables, like when we actually do that, what happened, and like noticing the ripples that flow. Same thing, it won't make a difference. What about the times when you show up anyway and you see the ripples? um yeah.
Well, yes, in talking about the system, there's never just like one moment where the system changes. It's all the ripples that end up creating change or new systems, right? So focusing on the ripples versus the end result.
Yeah,
Okay, can you see my share here, Libby?
I can. Yes.
Okay, great. So this will be sent afterwards along with the recording, but I want to just kind of talk you through some of these and you can do your own searching. And I know everybody has access to the internet and knows how to search and you can find your own thing, but sometimes it's helpful to have a document where you just highlight some of the ones. And I am not personally involved with all these. I can't, everyone has to do their own research. I can't, stake claim behind all of them, but just want to give you some examples of when I'm looking for ways to make impact, be in service, find community. Here are some of the places I go. And so, first of all, just volunteering, even if it's 1 hour a quarter, I, it has changed my life. I am so grateful for the opportunity to volunteer, and what I get back is so much greater than what I give. And there's a handful of really interesting volunteer kind of matching organizations. They're everywhere. You can find them locally, nationally, etc. And I really encourage you to find something that resonates with you. Like I love to write, and one of the volunteer organizations I'm involved with is helping young writers have mentors and writers. So there's all kinds of ways in which you can shine your light and not only be in service, but also get to spend that time in service doing something that brings you joy.
I was just going to type in the chat too, like I keep going to like find your people, and to that not feeling alone. Volunteering is often a great way to find other people taking action and feeling a similar way. So for me, I've found that halo there too.
Yes. I also like, again, I know we are not all women on the call, but women leading women. And Tara Moore, again, we mentioned her at the beginning, is one of the really amazing women with her book Playing Big and all the programs she does. And she also has a lot of freebies as well, where it's a great place to find community and ground and center on ways that you can create impact within yourself and in the world. Libby. Her Create Some Days is so beautiful, and I really encourage you to follow her. And she's also right now doing a program with the Perch on Fridays where they're talking about creating change and civic-minded duties as well, which is really fantastic resource and a great place to go and ground and meet others. Of course, RevelEleven, you're here today, and I just wanted to say you're already participating in community if you're with RevelEleven. And one of the other aspects of RevelEleven that you may or may not be aware of is that they have a program called Chapters where they have a really meaningful book conversation and talk each month. And that's a great way to get involved with community and also to get to know people more personally. There are many different civic groups to look at. There are a variety of community groups, even like you would be surprised. You look at the Y. I kind of had an old school view of the Y, and when I moved to a new city and looked at the Y, I'm like, oh my gosh, there are so many different ways to be in community here and programs, walking groups. I love walking groups, and they're everywhere. They're everywhere. And it's a great way because I feel when we're in movement, we also are having different conversations than when we're just sitting at a desk or a chair. So I love the idea of being out in nature and being with others and walking. Um, writing groups. AWA is one of my favorite, Amherst Writers Association. And one of the reasons I like AWA is it was really the first time I had the courage not only to write, but share my writing because it's only focused on positive. There's no negative critique in that process. And it was really a beautiful way to connect. Um, so even if you say I'm not a writer, I think you might be surprised by the benefit of writing during this time. It's one of the things, like you mentioned, Libby, that just has saved me with, going to a journal and when I have a tough question, just writing and writing and writing, even if it's something that only I'm going to see. Writing doesn't have to be for the masses. It can be just for personal.
Yeah. And I love the list that you've pulled together and the many facets of life and service and showing up in this time that they represent because it really is there's so much available and to the myth of, it has to look a certain way. It really doesn't. And there's so many different ways um to move things forward towards a future that looks more like the one we want to see.
Yes, and the last two, self-care. I would really encourage you, if you don't know about yin yoga, to check out what the benefits are, as well as breath work. Again, I just mentioned someone who does breath work that I'm familiar with, but there are many out there you can search. It's amazing how many free resources are also available on YouTube, as you all know. But I think breath work, grounding in that, and yin yoga. I mean, it's and yin yoga is, even if you can't do yoga, anybody can do yin yoga. So I really encourage you when you're looking for ways to settle, how your body might be feeling during complex and challenging times is just been a great practice for me. The last thing I'll mention is art. I mean, I am not an artist. I picked up a paintbrush. Well, I'm not going to say I'm not an artist. I picked up a paintbrush for the first time in the last 6 months, and it was because I went to Georgetown Lombardi has an arts and humanities program, and they have free classes every single week, whether it's chair exercises, whether it's painting, drawing, writing, whatever it might be. It's really beautiful. There are so many great resources. And for me, playing with watercolor has been such a good stress reliever. And I'm really overjoyed with just bringing in a new form of art to practice what that has also done. Because again, when I feel like when I'm more settled and I can walk into a room, I can vibrate in an energy where I'm carrying hope instead of
Mhm.
despair, which is always one of my goals. Anything else you would add or highlight from that list, Libby?
I would just endorse for sure. I also love sound healing.
Mm.
And again, there's so much available on YouTube, but also like looking for um, opportunities. Like my local yoga studio, I was like, I'm feeling the yin yoga, but then also is there sound? And I found there actually were opportunities to do a combination of yin and sound. And so again, I think there's just the opening the aperture on what might speak to us in this moment and creating the space, particularly like if things aren't if I'm not in that hopeful space or things aren't feeling good, listening, pausing, and then the inquiry of what would speak to me. And so thank you for putting this resource list together because you can just keep it handy and literally pull it up and it could be a great jumping off point.
Yeah. Oh, I like this photograph, changes in nature, right? Haikus.
Yeah.
Oh, I love haikus, urban sketchers. Oh, I'm so glad people are enjoying and thank you for the warm comments. We want to, and we're about perfect on time here, and at the end we may have just a moment to share, but Libby's gonna kind of wrap this time with a bow for us with a brief meditation and then a few prompts. So Libby,
All right. So let's begin to just call in integration of all we've touched on, all that it may have stirred up, and just meet here in our bodies and in this moment. I'll invite you to close your eyes and just start taking some deep, full body breaths. Fill your stomach, fill your arms and your legs all the way to your fingers and your toes. And as you keep breathing, notice how you're sitting. Notice if you're holding anything in a way that feels uncomfortable or you have any tension anywhere. And if you do, just send the breath there and relax and release. And as you keep breathing, feel your feet on the floor. Feel your seat beneath you, the energy all around you. And notice how supported you are, always. And as you continue to breathe in and out, imagine you're radiating a bright white light of hope. It's a healing light, a loving light, one that shines far and wide across your city, across your country, across the world. And as you keep breathing and shining that light, remember, hope is not naive optimism or wishful thinking. It is not passive waiting or blind faith. Hope asks something of us: to show up, to stay, to keep building the world we want to see. It is the belief that our tomorrow can be shaped by what we do today. As you breathe that in, consider what feels most alive for you around purpose and impact right now. And as you breathe that in, remember we are stronger together. We don't have to do this alone. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for shining your light. And when you feel ready, invitation to grab a pen, some paper, whatever you love to journal on and with. And we can meet at that question. What feels most alive for you personally around purpose or impact right now? I'll give you a minute, and then we've got a couple more questions. And happy to have people share in the chat too as we go. If we have time, people want to share at the end, welcome as well. Next, what tools or ideas from our time together might support you in exploring or pursuing that aliveness? Mm, thank you for that. I envisioned all of our radiating halos of hope covering the globe. Um, Gonna sit with that one. That feels very powerful.
And there is energy, even even in an online room, right? That's gathering and building momentum and radiating. I love that. And just a few minutes left, maybe one more prompt.
Yeah, yes. Is there an intention you would like to set? And I'll say one thing I love about intentions is it feels directional. Um, it feels like an invitation, like a North Star that you can just kind of move with. Um, and I think that that, particularly when we're talking about the big things, can be a powerful way to move towards whatever it is that might be stirring inside of us.
And when I think about that, and maybe the thought I'd like to leave people with today too, is that, sometimes for me, that intention can be vague. It doesn't always have, sometimes it's specific and sometimes it's vague. It can shift. But sometimes for me, an intention might be I'm going to put language around things that are hard to say. Because I think, especially in my circumstance as a woman, I have been conditioned, right, to not rock the boat.
Mhm.
When I say put language around things that are hard to say, it doesn't mean be argumentative or divisive or combative. It just means finding words, finding new language, finding ways to maybe connect and even just say, can we have a conversation? Something doesn't feel right. How are you feeling?
Yeah,
Must be a hard time. I'm not sure how to show up, but I'd like to, right?
beautiful. That's beautiful. And you're so great with putting words to things as well.
Thank you, Libby. And I think the other invitation I have is for all of us today. We showed up because we have hearts and we care and we desire change. We desire to leave the world a better place than we found it. And so I applaud you for showing up for yourselves, for showing up for your community, for contributing to our conversation. We will send a follow-up recording, places to find Libby. I highly encourage you to follow her again, to get some of her inspiration and any final thoughts, Libby, before we close?
Yeah, well, just as you were saying that, I think an intention too can just be to notice where there's an opportunity, right? To care, to pour into that care. Um, I think an intention to notice
I love
is,
that.
I mean, sometimes we think it has to have, we have to have it all figured out. But when we connect to that awareness practice, I think our brains too help us by, if we're looking to notice, more opportunities will seem to cross our paths. So that can feel like magic. And I think especially in these times, I'll take all the magic I can get.
Oh, I love that. Well, thank you for joining us on RevelEleven today. I'm back in a couple weeks, Ruth, on April 22nd for the Playful Way. So I hope to see you then. And in the meantime, Take care of yourself. Take care of those around you. Share your garden vegetables. I love that. That might be my favorite quote from the entire day. Share your garden vegetables.
Yeah. Figuratively and literally. I love it.
Exactly. So from Newport Beach, California to Newport, Rhode Island, thank you for joining us today on RevelEleven. Thank you, Libby. So fun to chat with you as always.
Thank you. Thank you. Likewise. Thanks for
Thanks,
being here,
everyone.
everybody.
Take care.